I think the largest story over here is currency devaluation, whether it's the yen going down, the Korean won under pressure, or the Chinese yuan. And, as a currency specialist, somebody who's seen these cycles in the past, how do you look at it?
Well, I guess the flip side to all those three stories is dollar exceptionalism, if you might. It's the strength of the dollar which kind of drives a lot of where the weakness is. To be fair, in some of those cases, like for the renminbi or even for Japan, it's been weakening not just versus the dollar, but on a trade-weighted basis. But the bigger story driving for a lot of these currencies is still the interest rate differential. US economy has clearly outperformed most expectations, has proven to be a lot more resilient. And even while it is slowing down, as a lot of data is showing, there is more labor market slack coming up. The disinflation process is in play. The latest CPI numbers very much talk to that effect. But it's happening at a more, if you might, resilient fashion, a slower fashion than what would have been expected, and which means that the Federal Reserve is not necessarily convinced yet that it's time to be able to take back some of that tightening, and that rate differential story, therefore, still argues very much in favor of the dollar.
So that does, right? So there's a rate differential story, there's dollar exceptionalism as you're talking about it, but what about central bank intervention in this part of the world? Because in comparison to these three currencies, the Indian rupee has lost less this year thus far.
So absolutely. I think interjection by the central banks, to the extent that they want to maintain stability in the currencies, they want to minimize volatility in the currencies, will almost definitely be a critical factor. And as you said, I think for the Indian rupees, almost been very critical in spite of the shock we have just seen in terms of the election results being very different from what the markets had anticipated, has helped safeguard that range, that stability, which has been fairly critical. I think it's been a little different in the instance of Japan or China, where I think the central bank preferences are quite markedly different.